See, I would say that the main obstacle for taking an approach to disasters that recognize that there are not events that happen, but there are things that you have to plan for. Because you may not know exactly when it happens, but you can for sure now, almost literally every country in the world know it will happen. So how to ensure that society is organized to mitigate the impact, I think, is the key issue. And the awareness of that is clearly going up. The readiness to make this as a priority in social and economic planning is not equally high yet. And that's maybe the main thing we want to put forward in this report, that there has to be a lot more attention to longer-term planning for preventing and mitigating the impact of all kinds of disasters. If I take the example of early warning systems, too many people think about early warning only as technology. Monitor the approaching storm, signals, satellites, etc. But the last piece of that chain, and it will only work to save lives if there is a social organization. You need a clear system that organizes people at community level. You need a very clear and constantly accessible information flow that people learn to trust and respect. And you need to, when you do evacuate people, you have to have a place to take them to, which actually caters for their, you stay warm, you have something to eat, and you feel that your property is safe. The other issue is jobs. People lose their jobs. They lose their income. They completely lose their foothold in life. So there are lots of social issues, tension in families, loss of income. Many times I think we don't give enough attention to the social impact. We talk a lot about infrastructure, critically important. But at the center of all this is people factor. Mm-hmm. And the way people live through a disaster, I think, also impact their perception of the next disaster. Every disaster is also an opportunity to improve the preparedness for the next one. Wow. There is no evidence for the fact that to be prepared you need a lot of money, because some of the poorest countries in the world that are used to live with disasters, they have really made an enormous progress. So Bangladesh is another country that has really proven that if you make it a priority for the central government, for the local government and for the people, and you work hand in hand, it works. One real lesson learned from all this work is no one can do it on their own. It's not sustainable. You also need the private sector and business. You need media to be wise about these things and to ask the right questions, so to say. You need science, you need the people themselves. So working in this direction, it's really an issue of having everyone sitting around the table, representatives of all these parties. Because if you look at community level, just look at your own urban communities here. If you look at who the community workers are, they tend to be women. If you just look around and see, they are drivers, strong networkers, managers, organizers, caretakers. But when you talk about disasters at the highest level, look at who is talking, it's men. The whole campaign is really to, of course, give full profile to the importance of women's role. But also to look at why aren't women in more driving positions here. And so we need to look at how can we improve and how can countries and local governments and organizations avoid one of the most common issues that emerge after a disaster. It's when women and girls, of course, but in fact also children and disabled people, the evacuation shelters are not equipped for them. The food is not appropriate for them. There is no privacy. You have more violence in some of these shelters because there is no one there who thinks about these things. So you cannot just have one part of a community, in this case men, to design how these things will happen, because then you are inefficient, you are not optimizing your resource base. So it's very concrete. these are the things that matter. And that's why women have to also be encouraged to step up to grab the chances of running the show instead of running the back office.